Let's start the podcast now, shall we? Hello and good day, everyone, and welcome to the Big Question Podcast, where we tackle important issues with experts and insights. I'm your host, Alex, and today we're diving into one of the most debated topics in recent years: the origins of COVID 19. Did it come from nature? Or was it leaked from a laboratory? Joining me are Dr. Grace Emily Miller. Dr. Grace Miller is a virologist and infectious disease specialist. Can you say hi, Dr. Grace?
Hi everyone!
And another special guest, joining me are Chris Lane Dexter. Okay, so Chris Lane Dexter is an investigative journalist who has reported extensively on COVID 19. Welcome, both of you.
Hello everyone!
Thank you, Alex. I'm glad to be here to discuss this important issue.
Thanks for having me. This is the topic that as fascinating as it complex.
Let's start with some context. COVID 19 has impacted the world in unimaginable ways, but the question of its origin remains unresolved. Dr. Miller, could you give us an overview of the two main theories?
Absolutely! There are two primary theories. The first is the natural origin theory, which suggests that the virus jumped from animal to humans, possibly through an intermediate species like a pangolin or another mammal. This process, called zoonotic spillover, is how previous coronaviruses like SARS and MERS emerged. The second theory is the lab origin theory, which speculates that the virus may have accidentally leaked from a laboratory, such as the Wuhan Institute of Virology. This theory gained traction because the lab studies coronaviruses and is near the site of the first report outbreak.
Thank you, Dr. Grace, for your explanation. So, Chris, what can you say about her explanation?
And just to add, this debate isn't just scientific, it's deeply political. Both theories have been weaponized in different ways, which added to the confusion and mistrust.
Thank you, Dexter, for your explanation. So, now, let's talk about the natural origin theory first. Dr. Miller, what's the evidence supporting this theory?
The strongest evidence is the genetic similarity between SARS-CoV-2 and other coronaviruses found in bats, particularly one called rat-G13, which is 96% similar to SARS-CoV-2. This strongly suggests a natural reservoir in bats. Additionally, there's historical precedence. SARS and MERS also originate in bats and use intermediate hosts like civet cats and camels to infect humans. The pattern of zoonotic spillover is well documented in the scientific community.
Wait a minute! We are changing our location because many people are walking in our location and it's so noisy. Let's change our location now, shall we?
I also read that the wet markets in Wuhan, where live animals are sold, could have facilitated the spillover, while the exact intermediate host hasn't been identified. The condition in such market make them a likely site for an animal to human transmission.
Thank you for your explanation, Chris. Now, let's consider the lab origin theory. Chris, you covered this extensively. What's the basis of this argument?
The lab origin theory suggests that SARS-CoV-2 may have accidentally escaped from a research lab, possibly due to a safety lapses. The Women Institute of Virology, which is near the initial outbreak site, was conducting research on coronavirus. Prominent of this, the theory points to lack of transparency early in the pandemic and question whether proper safety protocols were followed. Some intelligence agencies have been suggested this is a possibility, though no conclusive evidence has been presented.
That's an important point, Chris. While there is speculation, scientific analysis of the virus genetic structure shows no evidence of artificial manipulation. The virus evolution appears entirely natural, which contradicts the idea that it was engineered in a lab.
I get your both explanation, Chris and Dr. Miller. So, how do we judge the validity of these theories? It means that how do we say that this theory is true? Is there an evidence? What can you say, Dr. Miller?
First, we evaluate the evidence based on credibility, methodology, and peer review. The natural origin theory has extensive support from genetic studies and historical patterns. The lab origin theory, while plausible in theory, lacks direct evidence and relies heavily on circumstantial arguments. It's also crucial to separate scientific inquiry from political narratives which can distort public perception.
Agreed. The lack of transparency from some governments has fueled the lab origin theory, but it's important to focus on what the science tells us, and so far the consensus leans heavily towards a natural origin.
So I get your explanation and point. In conclusion, while the lab origin theory has raised important questions, the scientific community continues to support the natural origin theory as the most plausible explanation. But as Dr. Miller and Chris have pointed out, continued research and transparency are essential to fully understand the origins of COVID-19. Dr. Miller, Chris, thank you both for shedding light on this complex issue.
Thank you for having me. It is a discussion we need to keep having.
Thanks, Alex. Let's hope we get more answers soon.
And that ends today's episode of The Big Questions. If you enjoyed this discussion, don't forget to subscribe and share and hit the notification bell down below. And remember, the search for answers is a collective effort. Until next time, stay informed and stay curious. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye,
Goodbye,
everyone.
everyone.